All right, onto our HubSpot workflow feature of the week. Set association labels in workflows. Now, why do we like this? Because association labels have rolled out and now we're able to actually automate those association labels on a workflow. And so, Craig, do you want to explain how we're going to use this and what's a good use case for this?
Yeah, and I'll just take a step back. So, yeah, association labels have been there for a little while. You can set up the association between, contact and a company. How are they associated? You might have the default out of the box one. Oh, this is a primary company for a contact. That's the label. You could set that. You've been able to set that for a while manually. Now, workflows have added the ability for you to set it by workflows. Everyone was asking for this because it's like, okay, I'm not going to manually go through contacts doing this based on criteria. I want to do it in workflows. That's rolled out. It might still be in beta, or by the time you're listening and watching this, it's been rolled out. Anyway, there's 3 actions in workflows now. You can create associations, remove, and update. If you're getting started with this, you're actually going to start with the update association labels, because if you've already got an association, say a contact is associated with a company, then the association is there, and really all you're wanting to do is maybe update the association label. So we've got an example, and at the end of today's episode, right down in shot 12, we've got a whole training on it. But the simple example we've used is for noting if an employee of a company has left that company, so they're a former employee. So we want to have an association. I can see, this person, they are a former employee of this company. And you can see why that'd be useful, right? Because you exclude them from email sends and things like that. But you don't want to get rid of the contact. You want to keep them so you've got that history of all the conversations. Now, your mileage may vary. I know when I've been discussing this with people, some people actually, when that contact moves to another company, they prefer to create a totally new contact and then just keep or almost archive the old contact. I don't like to do that myself. I prefer to keep the one contact and then I keep the associations with their multiple companies, but for their old company, the association label is former employee. And with their new company, it's current employee. And so then we use association labels for that. You can, in the training right at the end of the show, you can see more on that. We've just got a few screenshots on how it looks in workflows. Very easy to use, very easy to set up. And one final thing I'll mention is you might be like, I wish I could create lists based on association labels. And you can, but it's tricky at first. You don't quite realize. And so the little tip is when you create a filter in a contact list, for example, around, say, certain contacts that are associated with a company, you actually have to choose that associated to company. You have to create some property on the company. Just choose anything that's always there. We use create date, for example. And then you can click back in and choose the association label to further narrow it down. So that's a little bit of a tip. If you've got questions about that, let me know, because I know that's a little bit hard to explain. If you're listening to this, if you're seeing this in the screenshots, it'll make a bit more sense. But again, Ian, this is not a game changer. You know how I'm ridiculing LinkedIn. Everything's a game changer. This is not a game changer, but it does unlock some things for a certain segment of people. Correct. It's not like everyone's going to be using this, but for some specific use cases, this just makes it so much easier than now. So I think we'll see a lot more use cases for this. Have you started using this, Ian, or are you still playing?
No, I haven't, Craig. So we've been doing lots of things manually with customers, and so now I'm going to start automating some of these things. Especially, actually, I'll tell you what, the example you've given with former employee, current employee, right? This is happening across the board. I've been asked a few times now by people, what is the best practice to manage this? So I think this is actually a really good way to manage that. And I'm in agreement with you in terms of the perspective of not creating another contact, is keeping the one contact. It's the same person, right? So you want to see that history. And I'll give you an example. Got a customer who is a membership association. People move around. And I always think if that person's moved to a company that's not a member, there's an opportunity because they've already experienced our service and what we offer. Why? I've already got an inroad with this person because I already know who they are. why lose all of that history and create another contact when I can just see all the interaction I've had with this person? So I think that's a really big thing to be aware of. So here's a little best practice on how to manage people that are moving around businesses and who they are. So just take note. It's very important.
Yeah, I can see both sides. I can see why people sometimes want it to be a separate contact, but I'm like you. I want the one contact. It probably depends on the relationship of the business, your B2B business. I kind of feel like keep it like LinkedIn. LinkedIn has one contact and they've got all their former history, who they used to work there and that. I kind of like that approach in HubSpot as well. Yeah, this is a contact and you can see all the former companies they used to work with. By the way, you can click through to a company and then see, here's all the current employees here's all the former employees, right? I find that useful, but I can see that some people might not want to do that. Maybe more B2C, more an e-commerce thing. Maybe prior history isn't, or maybe it was, that was their work email. No, they're actually a person. There's just their personal email. Okay, keep it a completely separate contact. So I can see both sides. I think the important thing is that you think about it and what's the best approach for your scenario and your company, and then work out how to implement it accordingly.